I'm Diana Macedo. We have breaking news. Former President Trump will stand trial in the hush money case against him starting April 15th. Trump's team had tried to further delay that trial, arguing they needed more time to review newly released evidence, but the judge rejected that argument. Meanwhile, an appeals court has ruled that former President Trump can post a smaller bond than the $464 million originally imposed in his New York civil fraud trial. A panel of 5 judges are now giving Trump's team 10 days to secure a bond of $175 million before New York Attorney General can start seizing his properties. Earlier, Trump thanked that appellate court and said he would abide by their decision.
I greatly respect the decision of the appellate division, and I'll post either $175 million in cash or bonds or security or whatever is necessary very quickly within the 10 days. And I thank the appellate division for acting quickly.
Trump clearly happy there. The ruling by the appellate court, less so on the ruling in the hush money case today. Let's bring in executive editorial producer John Santucci, ABC News legal contributor Brian Buckmeyer, and ABC News contributor, former Georgia prosecutor Chris Timmons for more. John, a lot to follow today because of these 2 cases happening at the same time. But let's start with the latest, this April 15th trial date now in this hush money case. What does that mean for Trump?
It means that Donald Trump, for the first time ever, is going to be sitting on trial under criminal charges. I mean, just think about it. It is nearly a year to the day this week that the first criminal indictment was handed down, and now in just a few weeks from that time, Donald Trump is going to be sitting in that same Manhattan courtroom when he was arraigned around early April last year, Diane, for the start of the trial. It means for at least 6 weeks, Donald Trump is going to be living back in New York. He is going to have to be at court every morning, stay throughout the day, stay until the evening, and come back again and do it the next day. It means that he will have to sit there as witnesses, including Stormy Daniels, Michael Cohen, some folks that were affiliated with AMI, David Pecker, who eventually was involved in the pay-to-play or catch-and-kill scandal. This is all around. Are all going to testify about it, and he has to listen to every single one of them. This is not like what we've seen previously, that he gets an option to come back or not. Donald Trump is literally going to have to be there. That's just something, an image. You know, I wish cameras were in court in New York. I wish we could see it. So that's part 1 of the developments. Part 2, we were all waiting to see what was going to happen in the New York Attorney General's case today. This was a deadline. Donald Trump having to put up $464 million. Now we know the Court of Appeals has thrown him a lifeline, now down to $175 million for bond. That does not mean the full amount goes away. It just means for here and now, it's less money Donald Trump has to put up. He had a tough time securing $464 million. It's my understanding from talking to sources close to the former president, they think this amount of money more doable.
Brian, in the hush money case, Trump's team tried to argue that they got this new evidence, over 100,000 pages of documents provided to them only recently, and they needed more time to review it. Why didn't that go over with the judge? And why did the judge seem so hostile at times to what Trump's team was trying to argue in terms of prosecutorial misconduct?
Yeah, so what you have to understand is that pre-2019, New York State had what was arguably one of the worst discovery laws in the country. After 2019, it was revamped, and the way that it works is that the prosecution has to turn over all relevant discovery or evidence that they intend to use against a defendant before they announce ready for trial. Here, Donald Trump and his attorneys are saying that you said you turned over everything, that we were supposed to have everything going towards a trial. But now with this new dump of information, it appears that that statement that you said all evidence or all relevant evidence was turned over now seems to be false. Now they get to have this argument of, did you have access to this information beforehand? Did you do your due diligence to get it? And what we've seen from the Court of Appeals as early as last year, they've said that if that evidence isn't turned over appropriately, they can be certain sanctions, whether it be dismissal of a case or that evidence not being allowed to be used by the prosecution in their case in chief. So here, the judge is basically deciding whether or not this information came late because of the fault of the prosecutor, the defense, or someone in between. The judge ultimately decided it wasn't the prosecution's fault and that this case can move forward because there wasn't much harm or delay done to the defense.
All right, so Chris, let's pivot to the AG case now. Trump now has to secure this lower $175 million bond to appeal the civil fraud judgment. So what are the next steps in that appeals process, assuming he does secure that bond?
So after that, then it would go to the Court of Appeals to take a look at the case. And they, as Brian said earlier, they're looking at two different things. Did the judge make some sort of legal error? I suspect, they may take a look at some of the earlier summary judgment motions where the judge decided, even without hearing evidence, that there had been some fraud committed. So I think they'll look at that particular issue. I think they'll look at all of the different rulings. But for right now, the biggest thing, as you mentioned, Diane, is those 10 days where they've got to come up with that bond so that they can stay any sort of execution on the judgment.
John, how's Trump's inner circle responding to these decisions? One a win and the other not so much.
Yeah, I mean, the way you'd expect, right? You respond to a win by saying, yeah, you respond to a loss saying, ugh. So that's the reality of what they're dealing with right now. Listen, they did not expect, if you talk to them candidly, that April 15th was suddenly going to disappear and this was going to be a trial that moved to the summer. They were hoping for it, thinking they had a good argument because of the amount of evidence that suddenly would have to go through. But the reality is that they have felt from the get-go this was a trial that was going to happen. And look, in all of the cases right now, Donald Trump has been successful in the delay game, right? He's been really good at it in the D.C. case, waiting on the Supreme Court to hear it later next month. He's been successful with the documents case. We still don't have a trial date there. There's a calendar date roughly in May. That's just not real. And obviously, we've all been talking about I can't think of a better way to say it, the absolute hot mess that has become the Georgia case, given all the distractions and drama that have happened with the DA and the relationship there. So this is the one they knew they're going to have to face. They obviously have the strongest legal team here, led by Todd Blanche, who is leading all of the cases at the moment, and a couple other attorneys that have been around the former president of the company for some time. So as far as April 15th is ready to go, they are ready to go. Not excited for it, obviously, but here it is. On the other case, being the Attorney General's, thrilled, because the reality is they had basically given up all hope. As one person said to me, let's see what Monday brings, being today, because this was the deadline day. They had gone to 30 different bond companies. They got nothing. He did not want to sell anything. He did not want to liquidate his Truth Social shares, which you and I were talking about earlier, Diane. Obviously, now that company has gone public under a different ID of DJT on the NASDAQ, Donald Trump's holdings of that suddenly add up to $3 billion. He can't liquidate it right away without a special approval from his board, but nevertheless, that was another thing discussed as a potential lifeline. So the reality is they didn't have to do anything. They just needed the Court of Appeals to step in. So 175 is a win for now, but let's be clear. It allows them to appeal. It still means, though, the overall judgment, 464, remains.
So, Brian, in the hush money case, this is a criminal trial. So how difficult will jury selection be for this?
So jury selection, remember, is going to be an opportunity for both sides to find 12 people, plus probably 2 or 3 alternates, so let's say 15 in total, just to give us that good round number. And we're not looking for someone who has never heard about Donald Trump or never heard about this case, but someone who can put aside what they may have heard, whether it be a lot or a little, and only listen to the evidence that's presented to them in court and make a ruling based on that. With that being the standard, I would say it's extremely difficult. Probably not as difficult as the other cases, but still difficult nonetheless, because people have already formulated opinions as to whether or not this is a crime, this isn't a crime. And so you have to sift through all of those people to find someone who's going to still hold back their reservations or their belief as to the guilt or innocence of Donald Trump, and instead weigh the evidence that's presented to them. And then this is a 6-week-long trial. They have to be able to sit and hear all the evidence, regardless of their job, regardless of their lives, regardless of what is going on, and tune out all of the news like us talking about this and still come back with an unbiased decision. That's going to make for a very difficult process going forward.
Chris, if you're the prosecutor in this case, what are you focused on now ahead of that trial date?
Jury selection, just as Brian said. I mean, so the most important part of any decision, and anybody coming from a 2-parent household knows, you go to one parent for one question, you go to another for another, depending on what answer you want to get. That's the same thing when you talk about a jury. So, I mean, right now they're focusing on what type of jurors they want beyond trying to find folks that are going to be fair and able to look at the evidence as it's coming in, just as Brian said, and hear the laws that's coming from the court. But you want to find those folks that are going to be favorable to your case to try and protect them during jury selection. And more importantly, you're looking for people who are going to be unfavorable to your case, because that's who you're going to strike if you're the state. So if you're a prosecutor, you've got a lot going on. Your main focus, though, at this point is, you should be ready for trial. You should have most of your ducks in a row. You should have your witnesses who you want to call, what documents you think you're going to use, and then you want to be focused on who are those 12 people, and also the alternates as well, because any case that I've tried of any length in a 6-week-long trial is an eternity when it comes to trials, most are only a couple of days long. So 6 weeks is a very long time period. Brian mentioned the alternates before. They're going to be just as important as the main jurors because, unfortunately, one or two of the main jurors probably won't be able to continue serving. Life happens to jurors just like it does to everybody else. People get sick. You've got different family emergencies that pop up, and so you lose jurors along the way. So really, at this point, Diane, what they're focusing on is jury selection and thinking, what are the 12 people are going to look like who are going to be the ultimate decision makers in this case?
John, how could this all affect Trump's campaign?
Well, I mean, he's not campaigning in the traditional sense, right? I mean, he's not going and doing big events during the week. He's not going to go doing Glenheading. And some of that Donald Trump actually does not particularly enjoy. He likes the big events. He can still run out and do those on the weekends. But it does make things a little difficult, obviously, right? Because there are some events and things that you got to do over the course of the campaign, right? And obviously, the one thing that makes it a little easier is that this is not 2016, where Donald Trump locked up the nomination in late May, June. He has it locked up. It's his nomination at this point. It's done. All we're waiting for is the coronation this summer at the Republican National Convention. But it does make it tricky. So one of the things that's been discussed within Team Trump is maybe we do a running mate sooner, right? Bring somebody else that could step in and do some of those events for us while he's stuck in a courtroom. I'm told no decision is even close yet. It's something the former president is building a list with many, many people on it. There's no final set, core group that they're close to. But that is one of the things being discussed because, as you point out, he's got a campaign. He's got to be on the road in some way. This makes it virtually impossible.
Does it help him, though, that these cases get so much press, so he is at least still having his name out there and getting that attention?
His name is out there. He's obviously able to speak as often as he does. Look at today alone. He's already talked 3 times, and we're all waiting for a potential press conference when he leaves court very shortly. So, yeah, it definitely helps him, and it has helped his fundraising efforts, although those numbers got a little soft recently. So I think, though, what you're going to have to figure out here is that Donald Trump successfully campaigned in 2016 talking about everybody else's problems. This time around, this entire campaign has been about his problems, right? That they're out to get me. Witch hunt, right? This is what Donald Trump is thinking is his win. Let's see.
All right, John Santucci, Brian Buckmeyer, Chris Timmons, thank you.